go.
All right. Sorry about that, boys.
No, that's good. That's fine, Kyle. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Cal.
User left your channel.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was weird, but we got fixed. So what Chris was saying was that $20 million guaranteed for 2020 team option. That's pretty much all you missed. But we got Mark Stoneburner and Chris on the show because, as you guys heard me, Brendan and Brady are out today. No big deal. We got it fixed quickly. Thank you, Kyle. Really appreciate it. So yeah, let's get into week 1. Or for, I guess, some teams it was, preseason week 5, for like the Bears-Packers game that was supposed to be the return of football, but we had to wait a couple more days to get the real return of football because that was like watching Pee Wee football.
Hey, but by Monday night we got there.
Monday night, that Houston Texans game, Chris. I know you're a Texans fan.
Yep.
But that was nuts. The ending to that was insane.
It really was.
In my opinion, I don't think there was roughing the kicker on that extra point. That's just my opinion. I think it was a very iffy call, in my opinion.
Didn't affect the outcome of the game in the end.
In the end, it didn't. But if it did, it'd been like, yo, was that really roughing the kicker? And I understand he came out, he like landed on his plant leg. We saw it just before the stream went fully live.
Yeah.
But he landed on his plant leg, so I get it. But in that situation, I don't think you can really make that call. But they did anyways.
I think it's interesting given that situation in the building they were in, given the climate in which the fans were, creating due to the
No call last year.
no call last year. Yeah.
There's so many fans dressed up.
Yeah, they were all dressed up
ref,
as
uniforms as well.
As refs. I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. I actually didn't watch the late Monday night game, which is, bad because I talk about it with people. But Josh Jacobs showed out.
He looks good.
He looks good.
I did watch the game. He looks good.
Yeah.
I
I saw the highlights, but yeah, he looked really good.
I'd move past just Josh Jacobs and say the Raiders as a whole. They looked like a completely different beast than they were last year. They looked like they had a plan. They looked like they had a pretty serviceable replacement for Jared Cook. Another guy on the outside in Tyrell. They found somebody in the slot. He didn't have a whole ton of receptions, but Hunter Renfrow did his job. And then you back it up with a bell cow carry type of running back and Josh Jacobs, and how good he is at breaking tackles. I think it meshed well, and I think the offense is only going to get better as the offensive line gets back. You got their left guard and right ones. Both their guards are out right now, starting guards. You have one out due to injury, and then Incognito, who's serving his 2-game suspension. So I think as this offensive line gets better, I don't see how the offense gets worse throughout the season.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they could be real dangerous on the offensive side of the ball. And even Cleveland Farrell, I saw he even got a sack on his NFL debut. So their first-round picks are showing out.
Yeah, Jonathan Abram was.
Yeah, Jonathan Abrams is a safety.
All over the place last night.
That guy's nuts. That guy's a baller.
He was hitting everyone.
That's what he wanted to do. If you guys watched Hard Knocks, he was looking to hit people in practice. John Gruden had to tell him to calm down because he's hitting his own teammates. But yeah, the Raiders looked really good. Denver looked slow, but we kind of thought that was going to happen.
It was preseason week 5 for Denver.
Yeah, there's another preseason week 5. I mean, they still scored 16 points, which are more than the Packers and Bears did combined. But the Bears' defense is way better than Oakland's.
I think the big takeaway from Denver was probably Courtland Sutton. I don't think the running backs really did anything to wow you, which kind of was the tempered expectation. As you went into the draft, you saw Phillip Lindsay, who was definitely the one in that backfield, fall to like the 6th, 7th round. And so I thought the biggest surprise, in my opinion, was Courtland Sutton, the guy they drafted, to be that one. And he really showed up for Joe Flacco. It seemed like him and Flacco had a chemistry going. I don't have his stats pulled up right here in front of me, but I know it was like something, 7 catches or something along those lines, and it seemed like they had really built a rapport.
Yeah, totally. I think Cortland Sutton could be the guy down in Denver. His I actually have his stats right here. He was targeted 8 times, caught 7 receptions at 120 yards, no touchdowns, but still a really good showing. And he was on the field 89% of the snaps.
Yep, and I think
nuts.
if you when you look at the targets and receptions, it's always a good thing because touchdowns will come. I mean, I think good receivers find the end zone. The outlier being Julio, for 2 seasons. But good receivers find the end zone. So if you have somebody who's going to get targets like he is, and at the value in which you got him, you probably got him in the mid to late rounds, somewhere in the 9 to 10 range. He'll pan out to be a wide receiver 2, a back end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3, something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, wide receiver 2 on the week he was wide receiver number 22. He has 1 touchdown. He jumps probably 10 spots to close to 10 spots to close wide receiver 1 numbers. Really good showing from Cortland Sutton. Let's get into some other week 1 standouts. I'm gonna start with the obvious one. I'm gonna start at quarterback. Lamar Jackson. He threw the ball 20 times, completing 17 of them for 324 yards and 5 touchdowns. This guy wasn't supposed to be able to throw the ball.
I think the biggest stat that you missed off there was the fact that he only ran the ball 3 times.
I was just going to get to that. He ran the ball 3 times. I was going to get to that.
Sorry.
He was he was quarterback number 1 on the week, obviously. Putting up in PPR leagues, which it doesn't really matter for quarterbacks, I guess, that much. But he put up 33.5 points. And funny enough, he was actually on Brennan's bench this week. He was on Brennan's bench. And who did he play instead?
Famous Jameis.
Did he play Jameis in the Dynasty League?
Famous Jameis.
He played Jameis Winston, or as some people now call him, Lameis Winston. Yeah, terrible showing. 3 INTs, I think.
I'm glad he played Jameis.
Well, it's because he was playing against you. So, of course, you're happy he's playing Jameis and not Lamar Jackson. He plays Lamar Jackson, he kicks your ass.
Yeah.
But you guys both had awful showings.
It was a battle of busts.
It was. Well, let me pull up the stat what Sleeper pulled up for us. The worst manager award for week 1. Sleeper does these weekly reports on our league. So worst manager went to Mark. He set the worst lineup and only scored 59% of their possible lineup projected points. Still won somehow. But the guy should be blowing people out of the water with his lineup.
But that's also because they're like the way they calculate, worst managers is like points left on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
And I left a lot of points on my bench.
Well, Mark, me and you are the only ones that are 1-0 after week 1 in Dynasty League.
That's tough, Chris.
Yeah, Chris took the L. Took the L week 1.
Though. Brady got a dub.
Brady got the big dub.
Hey, Brady called it. I'll give it to him, okay?
Brady did.
Take down. Who'd he beat again? Hey, Chris, who'd Brady beat week 1?
That was me. I already said it.
Didn't he also have the most points scored in the week? Yeah, 179.3 points from Brady's team. Outstanding.
Back to Lamar.
Yeah.
Picking up, kind of where we left it. Are you guys buying in to the revolutionized, Ravens offense? Are you buying into the numbers, or is this a byproduct of playing Miami?
You know what? After seeing that game, I want to say that I'm buying in, but I also have to see what Tom Brady does to Miami. If they put up another 60 plus points, which they're obviously able to do against Miami, then it's just going to be a product of playing Miami. And Miami is in complete shambles as a team. Before the game even ended, people were like, reports came out that like the top players in Miami, such as like Kenyon Drake, Roquan McMillan, Rashad Jones, all went out of Miami. I don't know if that was ever, accurately, confirmed. Thanks, that's the word I was looking for. It was ever confirmed, but that's not a good start to your season. I mean, Miami wasn't supposed to be anything good. Coming in with a new head coach, Brian Flores. But they weren't supposed to look like that. I mean, everyone in a Baltimore uniform pretty much scored a touchdown.
Yeah, and really, I don't think, staking with Baltimore, I don't think we're going to find out whether it was real or fake for a while. They got the Cardinals coming up, they got the Chiefs, they got the Browns, they got the Steelers, and really the first defense, just from week one, I know this is a bit of an overreaction, but, you look at all the defenses that they're playing over the next 4 or 5 weeks, you don't really face a defense that did much until you get to, week 5 versus the Bengals, who was oddly surprising that they were able to put up a fight against the Seahawks.
Their defense looked good against Seattle, but Seattle did squeak out the win, thanks to a late touchdown from Mark. Who scored that touchdown for the Seahawks in the fourth quarter?
I believe it was Tyler Lockett.
It was. He had 2 targets on the day, and one went for he had 1 catch, 2 targets, and he scored. Yeah, 1 catch for 42 yards, I believe is what it was.
That's crazy.
You guys hear Murphy chiming in on the Tyler Lockett news. Yeah, he 2 targets, 1 reception, 44 yards, and a touchdown. But he was on the field 91% of the time.
Yeah, huge surprise in that game. Chris Carson's good at football. Huge surprise.
He had 6 catches. So that whole 50 catches thing that they're trying to go for,
it might be a reality.
It might be, yeah. Chris Carson should be someone you might want to target in a trade if you don't already have him.
Yeah.
I know me and Mark are after him.
I wanted him bad before this week because I was so confident that he was going to play well. And I just could not pry him. I could not pry him from...
Nope. Windsor's stacking up running backs, but you can do that. You don't have to trade your players. I have no problem with him not getting rid. I understand why he's not trading him, but yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I think the biggest concern with Carson is still his health. Just make sure he can stay through an entire season.
Yeah, there's a lot of games left to play. All right, so next we're gonna go into running backs, and I feel like the surprise one would be Austin Eckler, but we're gonna talk about the guy that scored the most points, and it's a pretty obvious one. We're talking like this guy is just like we were watching this game together. And this guy puts his hand in the ground while he's getting tackled and stretches another 3 yards to score a touchdown. We're talking Christian McCaffrey. The guy's insane. You can't I'm surprised they were able to tackle the guy. Like, that guy is a straight man. He had 19 carries for 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was also targeted 11 times through the air, caught 10 of them for 81 yards.
I mean, there's just not a lot that you can say about him. I mean, it's so funny because, you want to talk about everybody who's good, but what's there to talk about? He's good at football.
Yeah.
Like, you put him in your lineup, you start him every week.
Yeah,
he's
you have
great at football. It's a no question.
Play him on your bye week. He'll probably still score you 10 points. Don't actually do that. That's not going to happen. All right. That was the obvious one. I had to talk about that because he just went nuts.
For sure.
For sure. All right, wide receiver. Chris, I believe you just traded this wide receiver to Brady. Am I right?
Yep, that's a correct statement.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins.
And I don't regret it.
Don't regret it. Well, who did you get? You got LaShawn McCoy out of that?
Hey, look, I prioritize handcuffs, all right? I need my team in one piece.
Clearly. I mean, LaShawn McCoy played pretty well. I think he had 12 points.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. He's going to play. But yeah, Sammy Watkins, 9 catches on 11 targets, 198 and 3 TDs. Guy had a career game. And he scored, I think they, what was it? They clocked him running on one of his touchdowns at 21 miles an hour. The guy's fast.
Dude looked like he was playing in his prime again. I mean, it's been tough to watch him, over the past couple of years. He just can't put together a full season. He's always an injury risk, and it just felt like over the past 2 seasons, really 3 seasons, it was like you either got a huge game out of him or you got nothing out of him. And maybe this is his huge game again. Maybe he's not. He's poised, given the injury that happened during the game that I'm sure we'll talk about He's poised to be that lead receiver in the offense right now.
Well, yeah, especially with the news of Tyreek Hill hurting his shoulder, but then having to be hospitalized after the game.
I got some info on that. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get into injuries here in a little bit. There was quite a few big name injuries to talk about, so we'll get into those injuries. But yeah, he's poised to have. It could be a career year for Sammy Watkins if he keeps playing the way he does.
For sure.
For sure.
Which I think is very interesting given his contract situation and where the team is as a whole with their cap space. Because he's due something like $20 million next year.
21 million, yeah. That's his
21 million
cap
next year, and up until now, you didn't think he was going to be given that money, and I'm still not sure if he is. We'll kind of see what happens with Mecole over the next few weeks while Tyreek's out.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be interesting to watch to see where Sammy goes from here on.
Yeah, for sure. I could see them restructuring. If he just goes off, I could see them restructuring his deal to where he gets 15 million, but they extend it over like 3 years, something like that. I could see it. I could also see him just saying, "Screw it, we'll give him the money." But yeah, they do have some decisions to make when it comes to Sammy Watkins in the offseason. Moving on to tight ends. Our tight end of the week was Evan Ingram. 11 catches on 14 targets for 116 and a touchdown. Who else is Eli Manning going to throw to? He threw to Cody Latimer.
Is Daniel Jones going to throw to?
Yeah, we did see Daniel Jones in week 1, but he did fumble the ball. I don't really blame him for that. I mean, he's a quarterback. He shouldn't be running. He shouldn't have to run, in my opinion. I'm not going to take that fumble and be like, oh, Daniel Jones sucks because he fumbled on a rush. No, that wasn't even. And the game was over, so it's it doesn't really matter. That's why he was in.
Well, you want to add to the possibility of production for Evan Ingram. You take into the fact that I know we're going to talk about injuries later, but Sterling Shepard being put in a concussion protocol this week. There's a very real chance that he misses Sunday. I mean, you thought you had a shortage of targets before.
Yeah, he had 14
Take away
of them.
Another receiver, and Evan Ingram's going to be the only guy out there. They're going to have to come and pick me up 30, to play wide receiver.
Well, and you could do it. You're all of 7'8", so. But yeah, Evan Ingram could go from 14 targets to 30. Again, who else? He could throw to Benny Fowler and Cody Latimer, but he has Saquon Barkley in the backfield.
Yeah.
But we watched this one. We watched this game as well, and Brady seemed very adamant that Pat Shurmur needs to give the ball to his best player more often.
Yeah, I don't know why Brady's getting upset about that. They were snapping to him every single play.
I don't blame him.
Let's see here.
For
let me pull up Saquon's stats. He was rushing the ball. He ran the ball 11 times for 120 yards. He was also targeted in the past game. Yeah, he's very efficient. No touchdowns on the day for Saquon. Targeted 6 times, caught 4 of them for 19 yards, and lost a fumble. He finished as running back 13. I wouldn't say it's a bad day for Barkley. On the field for 80% of the snaps.
I actually do think that's a pretty bad day for Barkley, which I think is saying something.
But is that his fault? I mean,
I don't think it's his fault. I just think as a fantasy finish, when you take Saquon number 1 overall, you think of an average day as finishing 5 to 7. You think of 20, 25 points as what you're gonna get on a weekly basis, and 30 plus is kind of what you expect. You don't it's probably not gonna be his average, but it's what you expect. So in my mind, finishing with the points that he did, it just kind of felt lackluster of a week 1. And you really do hope that this offense can turn it around a little bit over the coming weeks.
Yeah, he only touched the ball 15 times in the game. I don't understand why he's not catching close to 10 passes a game, carrying the ball 15, 20 times a game. Like, the guy should have the ball. I mean, granted, you don't want to injure your guy. I'm not saying just give it to him every time because you have to mix it up, or defenses will just read you like a book.
Yeah, but that could have been a little bit of game script too.
It could have been. The Cowboys have I think they have a good defense. They could.
They were so far behind. Eli just had to throw the ball. They didn't really have time to rush.
Yeah.
But they were just.
Well, that pass rush is real.
Yeah, but it'd be like, I don't know. They just they slowed down the run. Like when the game was so close, Saquon was getting some of his carries.
Yeah.
And then, as the game progressed, the Cowboys defense would stop. Then the Cowboys would go and score, and then Eli would have to be under pressure to try and throw. And the only person he could seem to have a connection with was Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
And so Eli and Evan would try and get him back down the field. There was always a threat of Saquon, and the Cowboys defense was always trying to hold Saquon or keep Saquon contained.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Cowboys Dallas defense doing a good job keeping Saquon unavailable. I mean, that in game script, he should be fine. I'm not worried about Saquon. But I'm on Chris's side.
I'm not worried about it either. He's still going to be top 5 running back, if not the number 1 running back. He could do it.
Bit of a frustrating finish this week for sure. But
but again, like Brady was saying, Pat Shurmur needs to get the ball in his hands a little bit more, I think. I agree with Brady. All right, before we move on a little bit, be sure to ask questions in the chat. Fantasy relevant questions. Don't ask, what's my favorite color. Don't do that.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is purple. Eat 'em up, cats. But yeah, ask fantasy questions in the chat. And at the end of the show, we'll try and answer as many as we can. But yeah, don't be hesitant to do it. No, there's not a dumb question when it comes to fantasy football because not everyone can do this. It's not an easy thing to keep track of. But all right, so there was some good defensive, good defense being played, which is kind of a surprise nowadays. And I'm going to go back to the Ravens here because the Ravens were the defense of the week. But again, they played Miami, so we're kind of going to skip that for right now, and then we'll get into another defense that I want to talk about later in the show. What I do want to talk about is there seemed to be some sort of sniper in Los Angeles. Mark, do you know anything about this sniper in Los Angeles?
I do not, Alec. Please tell me.
You don't know about you haven't heard about the sniper in Los Angeles? His name is Malcolm Brown, and he's the backup running back to Todd Gurley. 11 carries, 53 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It didn't look like Todd Gurley was even in when they got into the red zone. They got to the red zone, and they said, all right, we're going to take you off the field. We're going to put on Malcolm Brown, and he's going to score his touchdowns.
And it's not like Todd wasn't running well either. He looked, I mean, from the eye test, he was really he looked like old Todd Gurley. I mean, not old, but he was phenomenal. He was
looked
breaking
just like
tackles. Mm-hmm. He was explosive. He was making cuts. He was running to the outside, running up the middle. I mean, it was interesting. Maybe just, there's a little bit more injury risk when you get up close to the red zone by the goal line like that, when they really try and force you through the tackles. So I don't know if that's one way Sean McVay is trying to mitigate risk. But yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised when the Rams got to the red zone and Todd Gurley was absent.
I don't think Todd Gurley in the red zone is going to be not being in the red zone is going to be a theme that we see throughout the year. But I do think that Malcolm Brown having a more, I don't want to say a backups role, but a little more than a backups role, 8 to 12 carry range every game, I think should be expected.
A
complimentary, like a Latavius Murray,
or like Mark Ingram for the Saints last year.
Exactly. I didn't really buy into Sean McVay saying that Todd Gurley was going to have a full workload, and I take that back. I bought into it, but I took it with the expectation of his workload isn't going to be, 100% of 15 carries is still 100%. His workload was less than it was last year, but that's his new workload. So I thought there was some gamesmanship there in his comments. I think Malcolm Brown will have a role in this offense. They didn't bring him back as a restricted free agent for nothing.
Yeah. So the snap percentages are pretty much what everyone thought it would be. 70% Todd Gurley, 27% Malcolm Brown, and I believe Daryl Henderson got in on a couple. I can pull his. He was
I think he
on
got
3%. 3% on one carry.
I think you could safely drop Daryl Henderson.
In redraft leagues, I wouldn't have Daryl Henderson on my roster right now, barring injury. If something happens to one of those two backs, then you pick up Daryl Henderson. Dynasty, you hold on to him. He's a rookie. They traded up to get him. I mean, it could be like Rashad Penny didn't have a great year, and he was a first-round pick. And now he's looking good. Maybe he just needs some time. Anyways. Todd Gurley, 14 attempts for 97 yards. 1 target, 1 reception for 4 yards. Nothing crazy through the air. But yeah, Todd Gurley looking like Todd Gurley from last year. But he just wasn't there in what looked like to me. He just wasn't in when they got to the red zone. So yeah, that's why a lot of people were very hesitant on Todd Gurley. There was a lot of news coming back that he wasn't going to be the workhorse guy. He wasn't going to get as many snaps, and Malcolm Brown's, going to snipe. And that's what he did week 1. One more player I want to talk about before we get into injuries. And this guy kind of came out of nowhere. He only played 10 snaps. And I just want y'all's opinion on if you guys are going to buy into this. He played 10 snaps, but he scored 2 touchdowns. Marquise Hollywood Brown. Do you guys buy into that, or is that still are we still going with they're playing the Dolphins?
Chris, I'll let you go ahead and go first here.
It's real conflicting because when I first saw it, my thought was, well, 12 snaps. Yeah, he's not. You can't produce on 12 snaps, and if that's what he's going to be, that's what he's going to be. But I'm not like committing everything to it. I don't think he's going to be as productive as he was or as he showed. I think that's a byproduct of Miami. But I do think he'll end up being like a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, like somebody who could blow up week to week.
But he's got to be on the field more often.
Right, and I think it's him not being on the field this week was, I think, a little bit of the flow of the game. When everybody's scoring and the other team can't score, you don't really need to put your team at risk.
That's a good point.
So I felt, and he was already hampered with an injury, so I felt like it was kind of we don't really need you this week. You've done your piece. Let's just let you have the rest of the game. Kind of like, when a baseball player gets taken out in the 4th or 5th inning of a blowout game, you just give them the extra rest because you don't really need to put them at risk. So I'm buying into it. Yes, I think he can be good. I think the next few weeks are going to be telling because, like I said earlier, the Ravens have really good matchups for passing offenses over the next 4 or 5 weeks. So I would say pick him up now. I like his prospect, but I'm also not committing everything to picking him up.
I'd have him on my roster if I was in redraft. I would like to have him on my roster. Yeah, he was on the field 18% of the time, had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 147 and 2 touchdowns. It looked like he was playing at Oklahoma all over again. Because that's what he was for Kyler Murray. He was the deep guy. I mean, he was number 1 receiver in Oklahoma, but he scored so many touchdowns just running straight. He just outran everybody. He actually finished as a running back. He didn't finish as a running back. He finished as a wide receiver number 5 this week in PPR.
Yeah, and him running straight lines,
it worked.
It worked this week too. It didn't really look like, and this is why I comp him to Deshaun Jackson, or I'm trying to think of like another
I
comp
agree with
similar to that.
It's 100% agree with that.
It's a big play, and if he ends up developing into the target one for Lamar Jackson, and if Lamar Jackson's passing is real, he could be a stud, like a superstar with week in, week out wide receiver 2, possible wide receiver 1 upside. I think he has that potential. He has that speed. he has that report. I just feel like the hype on him was a little bit lower because of his injury in the season. It was hard to see a lot of what he was doing.
I agree.
Yeah, depending on health, I think you could see him achieving like a 50% snap count next week or higher.
He is, on the depth chart, it does have him listed as the second wide receiver on the depth chart, according to Sleeper, behind Willie Snead. So we'll see how that goes out.
Yeah, if
that's just according to Sleeper. I'm going to go off that.
If he turns out being full health, like staying healthy and recovering, he's going to be the number one there. Him or Boykin, I just think they
and Boykin even had a touchdown in that game.
Yeah, they overtake Snead. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I would play those two over Snead if I was Jim Harbaugh. But I mean, Snead's a good receiver. But all right, let's move on to injuries. We're going to start with a pretty big one. Guy went on IR, but he's designated to return. He'll be able to return in week 11. What was the contract for Nick Foles? Some stupid high. Yeah, some big contract Nick Foles gets. And on the second drive, breaks his clavicle, his collarbone. So he's out for the next 10 weeks. But
4-year, $88 million.
4-year, $88 million. Thank you, Chris. But I feel like they're in good hands. I was never a Nick Foles truther. I didn't think he was worth that big of a contract. I still don't think he is. He looked good. He had that. He was the DJ Chark reception, right? The touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he had that. I mean, he can throw the ball. He's a good NFL quarterback. But the guys they have playing now, Gardner Minshew, completed 88% of his passes.
That was a phenomenal showing from him.
Yeah, from a 6th round pick to play like that and just coming on, like not thinking you're going to play at all that game, coming on in the first quarter and then throwing 2 touchdowns. But I mean, he played the Chiefs, which aren't known for their defense, but still, I think that was just him being talented. I think he's a very talented quarterback. Is he going to blow up? No, I don't think so. But
I think the bigger takeaway is that the Chiefs secondary is still just in dire straits. Like,
yeah,
if they can
Tyrann
get cut up by
Gardner, really...
if they can get cut up by Gardner Minshew, then I'm streaming every quarterback that plays the Chief every week. Which
I don't know. I'm still gonna stream whoever's playing Miami.
Well, pick it. Flip a coin. I don't think it matters. But I believe the Raiders play Kansas City next week. So
the Raiders do play Kansas City. So Derek Carr.
Give me some Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr could have a good day. Speaking of Kansas City, Tyreek Hill looks to be out.
Real quick, sorry. Wanted to piggyback off that. Nick Foles being out, I'm really curious what you guys think about the season outlook, especially for like other receivers. I know he was, this Minshew guy was able to carve up Kansas City, but I feel like this season for Jacksonville could get called in real quick. I feel like, if they lose the next 2 games, could see, a quick turnaround in play, and they could become just as bad as everybody else, as all these bottom tier teams. And so I'm a little bit worried about the fantasy assets that are in Jacksonville, Fournette, Dede Westbrook in particular, as to what the fallout is if all of a sudden they start playing poorly, because they have a backup quarterback and not Nick Foles.
Yeah, if they start taking losses, I think I'm with you, Chris. The Colts in that division looked really, really good. I know they lost to the Chargers, but it was a very close and competitive game. Yeah, it was kind of. Well, let's not get into the overtime rules debate because I'll talk your F on that. And the Titans, I think, surprised a lot of people, myself included, with just
that defense.
How stout
I don't think it's the offense. That defense was insane.
But they put up 43 points too, and I don't think a single one of those touchdowns was a defensive score. So I'm kind of in on the Titans.
I like their defense. Their offense still needs to show.
I think
the offense needs to show out. I think They had good field position on almost half their drives.
Before week 1, for the AFC South, I thought the Texans would be the number 1 team. I thought it would be a battle between the Jaguars and the Colts, with the Colts slightly behind them just because Jacoby Brissett, and then the Titans, number 4. And my perspective has totally changed. I think the Jags are most likely going to be the worst team in that division. The Titans and Colts can still battle for 2, and maybe even a 3-way battle for first. I'm not entirely certain.
It's a very open division. I know Chris loves his Texans. They should have won that game, I think. But I definitely think that division is much more open than people thought.
Yeah, last week didn't give me confidence that the Texans are the favorite. I think the Colts proved what they've been saying in Jacoby Brissett. They backed, they walked the talk, and he was able to prove that he's a serviceable starting quarterback who can compete in the NFL. And yeah, the Titans, they blew all expectations out of the water. We'll see if it's able to last. I think the Titans usually have a couple games like this where they show up, but consistency has been their bugaboo for the past few seasons.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota is definitely a limiting factor there too.
Yeah, I don't buy into Mariota quite yet.
But I think I'm going to rise as far as from an offensive fantasy perspective. Derrick Henry takes a couple steps up for me in my personal rankings, just because if that defense is controlling the game, then they're going to be more ground and pound, especially because I don't think the talent for Marcus Mariota is there. And their receivers are A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, who's an absolute dud, and Adam Humphries. So I don't see a lot happening through the air.
Yeah. All right. Next injury we got is a pretty big one. Tyreek Hill appeared to be had a shoulder injury, but then was hospitalized because he had something to do with his spleen.
Right? No. So he is a severe strain to the SC joint, which is the sternoclavicular joint, which is where your sternum connects to your clavicle and the center front of the chest. And he, after going down, he had some extreme pain, and that's why they took him to the trauma center. So it was really just kind of obscure injury.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are kind of estimating him to be out 6 to 7 weeks.
Yikes.
Depending on the severity of that type of injury, it could be anywhere from 2 to 7 weeks. So fire up Sammy Watkins.
Yeah. This gives it a chance to for Mecole, the guy they traded up to draft in the second round, see what he can do.
If Mecole's on the waiver wire, definitely needs to be picked up.
Yeah, definitely a pickup.
Because there's going to be a lot more opportunity for him. And Patrick Mahomes can sling the ball.
Yes.
Do you think there's an opportunity for Mecole to hop Sammy Watkins?
No.
Do you think if he comes and shows out that he can be the one? Or do you think Sammy's locked and loaded as the one?
I think Sammy's locked and loaded as number one. I mean, if he comes out and shows out, I think they'll both get the ball pretty equally.
I think Mecole has... I don't think he has... So he's more of that burner type, that almost like Tyreek Hill light, is how a lot of people are comparing him. But I think Sammy Watkins is a more proven and well-rounded receiver. They both have big playability.
Yeah.
But, look at this last game. Sammy Watkins looked really, really good. And then there's always going to be Travis Kelce, as far as who's just commanding that target share. Yeah. Mahomes owes him on that one.
Owes him lunch on that one, as he said.
Yeah. But I could see, I think there's a definite wide range of possibilities for Mecole Hardman. He could be a wide receiver 3 with huge wide receiver 2 upside on a week-to-week basis. He could catch a 70-yard touchdown out of nowhere any given week. But I need to see what his snap percentage is and his target share, because they have other receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Patrick Mahomes is just going to stay with his guys right now, especially Kelce.
I totally agree. All right, next injury is a kind of small one, and I even missed it this week. Was Joe Mixon had a little bit of an ankle injury.
Sprained ankle.
Sprained ankle.
Not a high ankle sprain.
Questionable for week 2 right now.
Yeah, this is, as far as ankle sprains go, it's ideal.
Might want to look for Gio Bernard on the waivers if he's available. Chris, I'll let you talk about this one. I don't really think this one's much of anything because he still finished the game, but Deshaun Watson he tweaked his back on his touchdown run.
Yeah. So you saw on the first touchdown that the Texans scored, it was a little zone read where
beautifully executed, by the way.
Yeah, beautifully executed. He kept the ball, did a little flip over the pylon, landed on his back. You could see he was definitely uncomfortable. I wouldn't say in pain. He was uncomfortable with his back throughout the game. He went into the medical tent a couple times. He was shown getting him massaged a sideline. He was the last one out of the locker room, so you could see it made him feel uncomfortable. The Texans really didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about it in the post-game press conference. Nobody really pressed him about it either. I didn't really see a noticeable drop-off in his play. I think anybody who watched the game, really didn't see much, if any, drop-off. Maybe he was a little stiffer when he ran. Maybe he was a little more hesitant to take a few more steps out of the pocket. I don't know. It didn't really affect his play, though, in my opinion. It'll be something to monitor, but he'll play the game next week. The dude took a bus to Jacksonville last year because he had a punctured lung or something along those lines, and couldn't fly. I mean, the dude's a baller. He's gonna play regardless, and I don't expect this to be anything really going forward.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, but I didn't know if you would heard any news being from the Houston area. All right,
Yeah.
we're gonna get into the main topic of the show. I know that took a long time, but there was some big time plays. Week 1 always comes out with those. But we're gonna get into our fantasy MVPs. These are guys that we think, us as individuals. So like I have my own, Mark has his own, and so Chris isn't even on the script, but I'm gonna let him pick one anyways, and then he can defend it. But we'll start with Brendan Brady's. They chimed in on this one, as we usually do. If they're gone, we'll still take their takes. I'm gonna start with Brady's. I'll just read what he's got out here. His is Keenan Allen. With Melvin Gordon not likely to play until week 6 to week 8 or at all, I don't think he's going to play at all, in my opinion. Keenan Allen is going to be a key part of that offense, and I totally agree with this. And I mean, Keenan Allen has always been a high wide receiver 1 option in fantasy football the last couple of years. But yeah, Brady's fantasy MVP is Keenan Allen. Chris, you want to read Brennan's? No? Okay.
My name is Chris. I like the Houston Texans. Anyways, Brennan's going to go ahead. His fantasy MVP is the White Hulk himself.
Sorry.
RB1, wide receiver 1, QB1, tight end 1, defense 1, Christian McCaffrey. He says, is this even a contest? This White Hulk of a man literally fisted the turf and 2 linemen. So I'm going to go ahead and say with 1 fist, he's going to hold up at least 650 pounds. At least.
That guy's a monster.
Just to extend and like push his body forward and get the touchdown. He goes, that's the sort of grit it takes to beat the MVP. Plus 128 yards on the ground, 81 in the air, 10 receptions, especially good in PPR and half PPR leagues, should be enough. And that was versus the Rams.
The Rams had one of the best defense last year, so we'll see.
That's a cop out. My fantasy MVP.
That's a cop out. Good one.
My fantasy MVP is Cristiano McCaffrey. He plays for the Panthers. No. My actual fantasy MVP.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? We just did this. Threw me off.
I'm gonna go running back as well. I'm gonna go with Marlon Mack. Simply because I think he was drafted at a value with all the negative I don't know, negative anticipation, but there was definitely some reserve around that Colts offense with the surprise retirement from Andrew Luck and not a lot of people believing in Jacoby Brissett. But they got the new offensive game plan going on there with Frank Wright. They still have a top 5 offensive line. They still have a great defense, which is going to allow the Colts to control the ball. And also, Marlon Mack is good at football, I guess. I mean, he's the rushing leader after 1 week. 25 attempts for 174 yards and a touchdown. So,
all right,
give me some Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack. I believe you offered Marlon Mack to me for what was it? Nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I didn't take it.
If only.
I think I also offered you Tyreek Hill for a first-round pick before he got was.
I mean, in the end, it probably isn't that bad because it was for the number 1 overall pick, Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill. I don't think it's a terrible trade.
No. Chris, do you have a fantasy MVP? I don't have you here on the script, but if you have one, go ahead.
I didn't write it down, so I think it's easy for me to pick, who I made my bold prediction on, because if my bold prediction comes true, he's obviously the fantasy MVP of David Johnson.
So pick someone else.
So I'm gonna look a little bit past it, and I think what I'm gonna go to is a guy who was drafted with reserve because of his situation, and that's gonna be Austin Eckler. I agree with you. I don't think Melvin Gordon comes back. I really don't. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying into the week 10. I'm not buying into the week 2 coming back with his tail between the legs, any of those narratives. I just don't think he is. And so I think getting Austin Eckler in the round that you got on the offense that he plays in, and with the style in which he plays, he's going to be a fantastic pickup. Has the chance to be a top 10 running back by the end of the year, I think. And I think, with Melvin Gordon being out, we'll deliver on that.
He certainly balled out week 1.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
All right, on to my fantasy MVP.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, okay, so he didn't have a great week 1. All right, he didn't have a good week. Okay, it didn't even look like he played.
Did he play week 1?
Yeah, did he play week 1?
Let me find his snap numbers here. Let me go over to.
Wait, can I intro his stat line? Give it to me.
Where is it?
I'm doing it. All right, we're talking about a guy
he
who
was
had
on the
33% of the snaps, 15 attempts, 14 yards. We're talking about the running back for the New England Patriots, Sony Michel.
All right, hear me out. He had one bad game to where they were just throwing the ball over the field. Like, that was not New England Patriots style offense. We can all agree on that, right? That was not what they normally do.
I mean,
they don't normally throw. Okay, but he went off.
Listen,
Sexy
I don't think they have. I don't think in recent history you could say that. Yeah, in recent history they're more of a run first. But given the way they're shaping up this season, you throw Antonio Brown into the mix. You got Gordon, you got Edelman. I don't see why you get all these guys if you're not going to be hurling the ball 30 to 40 times a game.
I'm still going to stick to it. I'm still taking Sony Michel. Last year.
Sony Michel.
Did I actually just say that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sony Michel of the New England Patriots last year finished as RB35, 209 carries for 931 yards and 6 touchdowns. Only had 11 targets to the air, but of course, James White and Rex Burkhead were going to do that. But then they came out and said he was going to get more targets to the air. It looked like he was going to be the 3-down back. Like they were still going to use those guys, but they also have 5 running backs on their depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the thing that scares me the most about him is, one, his health. Obviously, he has knee issues.
He does.
But two, it felt like, and I watched a lot of the New England games pretty closely last year because I had James White and Edelman, so I pretty much had the only 2 fantasy relevant people in that offense. And it felt like every time they put Sony out, they would, for at least 1 or 2 routes per game, they would throw him in what would be a James White route. A throw in the flats, try to make a contested catch, and And Tom threw it like James White was out there running, and Sony just didn't come through. And so I'm worried about the passing side of his game. I think if he develops that, he could absolutely be bell cow, 3-down back, fantastic. But I'm worried it's not there yet.
I'm worried that Rex Burkhead looked good.
Sexy Rexy. Put him
in
your
flexi.
Yeah.
So
Chris,
I do have a prediction for Sony Michel for this season, if you guys are interested in hearing it.
Is it more than 1.4 points?
It's definitely more than 1.4 points.
He's going to need that to be
well,
a fantasy MVP.
This year, my prediction is he's going to get 30-plus receptions, over 200 carries, over 1,000 yards on the ground, and over 10 total touchdowns.
And
Week 1, he didn't see it, and he's still going to win me the 2019 Fantasy over GPA League title. I still believe it. Come season end, I will be the champion.
Hey, you know what? They play the Miami Dolphins twice, so there's a very good chance.
We could see a lot of things there.
Hold on, I got to update Alex trash takes real quick. Says, I will be the.
Oh, we're talking about notable quotes from the show. All right. I still stick by all of those, and I will stick by those for the remainder.
I'll be
of the
league champion of fantasy is greater than GPA. Because
E. Richard says I'm high.
Sony Michel.
Yes. Is this Alshon? Is this Alshon take also?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's also me.
Hey, wait, just to recap for those who may have missed it, Chris, would you like to read Alex Alshon take?
Yes, I would love to read Alex.
It's
Alshon
quick
take.
and to the point.
Alex stated that Alshon Jeffrey, the number 1 wide receiver and arguably one of the top 5 offenses in the league, old man Alshon can be thrown into a dumpster.
You can throw Alshon Jeffrey in a dumpster. Alec Ryder, everyone.
Yep. And he actually played well. He had a rushing touchdown though. Because Carson Wentz
screenplay, but yeah.
No, but Carson Wentz threw it behind him, so it counted as a rushing touchdown.
Oh yeah.
Chris, I want to put you on the spot. Let's go back to Sony Michel real quick, because you and I have a bit of a decision to make in the work league that we co-manage.
Yep.
Are you more confident? Like, would you rather start Sony Michel against the Miami Dolphins? 15 attempts, 14 yards, Sony Michel.
Yep.
Or Marlon Mack.
So in our
who's Marlon Mack
playing?
They played Tennessee, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm playing Sony Michel.
I'm gonna be honest with you right now. So.
Or do we play those two and we don't play David Montgomery?
Yeah. Our work league.
We do have a question in the chat about David Montgomery that we will get to after we do our waiver wire pickups. So let's hold off on David Montgomery for right now.
Yeah, so as Mark was stating in our work league right now, we have a plethora of running backs who all kind of busted with the exception of Marlon Mack. This week I'm playing. I'm currently have the roster set as Marlon Mack and Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel still getting 15 attempts despite only getting 14 yards is indicative of the fact that they still want to run.
You know, but the Pittsburgh front seven's not nothing to joke about.
No, they're gonna bang their head against a wall regardless of whether it's working or not, which is odd for Bill Belichick. But
it works.
But they, the guy's
got 6 Super Bowl rings.
I think they're gonna get up a couple. They're gonna get up a few touchdowns, and then Sony's just gonna run away with the game this week. I'm still hesitant on Sony throughout the year, though. I'm not sold. I'm hoping that he has a big game against Miami. Maybe we could flip him for something after that. I'm also hoping that other guys that we have on our bench can show out. So.
Yeah, I just didn't know where you stood. We'll talk more about David Montgomery later, but.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into waiver pickups of the week. This is information that we're going to do every Tuesday. It'll be real quick. Guys that we think that you guys should be targeting in your leagues. Quarterback is kind of an interesting position when it comes to fantasy football because a lot of people believe that quarterbacks are the way to go. But if you watched our show, I think it was our first show, we talked about draft strategy. We came to quarterbacks. Quarterbacks aren't where it's at fantasy-wise. Like, they typically don't win you weeks. unless they're named Patrick Mahomes. I say them
Lamar
biased.
Jackson.
Or Lamar Jackson this week out of nowhere. So this guy's owned in 90% of leagues. But the guy's usually not a fantasy quarterback. Like, you wouldn't want him on your fantasy team. It's Tom Brady. The guy was slinging the ball around the field like he was a rookie. It's because he's got the weapons.
Yeah,
he's got Josh Gordon. And his matchups are great. Even though the Jets and the Bills defense actually looked really good, so it'll be interesting come those games what happens there. But Tom Brady torched the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary. I don't know what was his stat line. Let me pull up his stat line real quick for you guys.
While you bring that up, I'm just going to touch on the fact I think Tom Brady's owner percentage is so high because his name is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Not because he is a great fantasy or elite fantasy option. But so he's going to be picked up on a lot of teams that are going to have multiple quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And I think for the next couple of weeks, especially this next week, you want to put him in your starting lineup.
Yeah.
And if he's available, you want to grab him and you want to start him.
So, by the way, week 3, week 4 is Jets Buffalo. So, but he doesn't really play a great defense until week 9. He plays an okay defense week 8 in Cleveland, but he plays Baltimore week 9. That'll be a very interesting matchup right there. But other than that, he's got good matchups until his bye week. Other than
Patriots are good at football.
Yes, we know this. Unfortunately, they're good at football. They get it done. All right. Next, we're going to go to the running back position. And this one we kind of argued about. I think me, you, and Brady, Mark, argued about it for about an hour about who we wanted to use for this. We almost went with a couple of them because there are some guys that you should look for on the waiver wire, but we went with Malcolm Brown because of his owned percentage. He's only owned in 12% of leagues. And if he's going to get the volume of carries and what it looks like the game script for the Rams is he's going to get the goal line work. Malcolm Brown, owned in 12% of leagues. I think you should pick him up. If he's available, if he's available for free, scoop him up.
As the great Matthew Berry says, if Todd Gurley is owned in 100% of leagues, especially given the state of his knee, then Malcolm Brown needs to be owned in 100% of leagues.
I would blow, if you play Fab or waiver order, I would blow significant investment on Malcolm Brown. Yeah. Like, I know a lot of people don't play Fab, which is pre-auction agent budget. You just blind bids every week. I know they play waiver order. I have no problem spending the number 1 waiver pick on Malcolm Brown.
You know what? I agree with that.
And I would probably spend at least 10% of my budget on him too in Fab.
Yeah. Yeah, Malcolm Brown. Pick him up if he's available. Next, we got wide receiver. Guy popped off out of nowhere. Like, this guy's done nothing for 3 years. I even joked and said he caught his first touchdown of his career when it was really his 8th. Wide receiver from Cincinnati, John Ross. Looked like an NFL wide receiver, but he actually knew what he was doing. The guy was on the field for 82% of the snaps, had 12 targets. The guy wasn't just a deep threat. He had 12 targets for 7 receptions, 158 yards, and 2 touchdowns, finishing as the wide receiver 3 on the week. Mark, you had this guy on your dynasty team. Are you actually buying in to John Ross?
I honestly don't know what to do with John Ross. Because AJ Green's out, so I don't think his role deteriorates. But I definitely was not expecting the Cincinnati Bengals offense to come out and torch the Seattle secondary. So I'm looking for... I mean, he's definitely a must-add. Like, you have to pick him up. But I don't have any confidence in starting him this next week. I think I need to see it again before I jump on board and believe.
You're going to keep him on your bench again? He scored 34.8 points last week on your bench.
I gotta agree with Mark. I
know.
I gotta agree with Mark on this one. It felt like he broke out of the purgatory.
Yeah.
That was Marvin Lewis. And sometimes that's just what it is. Bad coaches hold down good players. I mean, the guy was a top 10 pick.
9th overall.
And he was a top 10 pick for a reason.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a thing, but I'm with Mark. I kind of want to see it again.
I would love to see it again.
And I'm also worried about. I agree. I'm worried about AJ Green. He's gonna come back at some point. I think you give him a few more weeks.
His first game?
Yeah, he's missed one. I think the perception is it might be somewhere 4 to 6 range.
Mm-hmm.
So how long is his role really solidified? Who knows? Yeah. I'd like to see it again though.
We'll have to see it with AJ Green and see how it goes with him, Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, they have Tyler Boyd as well. He's like, even though he
even had a good game. He didn't score a touchdown.
I don't think he's a priority target in that offense.
I don't know if there is a priority target in that offense. I think it's whoever's open. Honestly, I think John Ross had a good game. Would I like to see it again? Yeah.
He had a great game.
Yeah, a great game.
Exactly.
I don't think it'll happen again.
Exactly. I don't.
At any week, a Cincinnati receiver could just blow up. Like Damian Willis, I think was the other guy that was on the other end of the field. He had a couple catches. I think he had 3 catches, but still, he was in. But yeah.
Does Tyler Boyd primarily play out of the slot?
No, I believe that's John Ross. I believe that's not confirmed.
Either way, he's
Tyler Boyd's stat line had 11 targets, 8 receptions for 60 yards. So it was, and he was on the field 79% of the snaps. So just 3% behind John Ross. But he just didn't have that touchdown. So they got equal targets, basically 12 and 11. But again, I think it's just whoever's open.
And so say John Ross is on the waiver. I know he's not in our leagues because we play in a lot deeper leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So the waiver wire's better. But like you mentioned earlier, he's hardly owned in most leagues.
10% to be exact.
What kind of investment are you putting into him? Like as far as fab and as far as waiver order. Like what are you comfortable investing in this guy?
So he's actually available in our redraft league, if you didn't notice that.
Maybe I might have to make some moves real quick. Just keep
talking. He's actually available in our redraft league. So it's interesting that you bring up how much that you would, prioritize John Ross. I'd put him up there in the same. I'd put him up in the same category as Malcolm Brown. If he's there,
the number one waiver priority.
Yeah.
I'm less hesitant. I'm more hesitant. There are guys that I prefer above him right now just because of the concerns that I had pointed out, and I don't have a concern with some of these other guys. Not available in our league, but in other leagues. So we'll see. I'd put some investment, but I'm not putting too much into him personally.
Would you rather have him or DJ Chark?
John Ross.
John Ross.
John Ross or Terry McLaurin?
Terry McLaurin.
John Ross. Are we talking redraft?
Yep.
Just
Yeah, Terry McLaurin. I'm gonna change my answer to Terry McLaurin. That guy looked nuts. I'm getting offers for him left and right.
Danny Amendola.
John Ross. John Ross.
Yeah, I think I go John Ross on that one too. But Danny Amendola was
long term. I would go Danny Amendola just because we don't know what this whole AJ Green, what's going to look like with AJ Green.
But let's move on. The ceiling is higher for John Ross.
Yeah, I mean he's much quicker. But we'll move on to the tight end position. Yeah, pick up John Ross. Moving on, tight end. Me and Brady have been huge on this guy, and he looked like a baller last night. Darren Waller, tight end for the Oakland Raiders, owned in 30% of leagues.
Waller the baller.
Not
much more to say, man.
Yeah, he balled out. I mean, he didn't have a touchdown. But he still, I mean, he looked like he could score 8+ touchdowns on the year. The guy finished as the tight end 7. He was on the field for 100% of the snaps. You don't really see that from tight ends.
No, and I mean, I think if there was a line set in Hard Knocks, if you're able to watch Hard Knocks, where John Gruden said that his offense is going to run through the tight end. It felt like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it felt like Waller's name was called on every other play. It felt like he was being highlighted in the offense. I don't know how much of that was Broncos' defense not being that great, or them just finding the open man and that having to be Darren Waller the baller.
Yeah, he had 8 targets for 7 receptions and 70 yards. That's a good stat line. 14 fantasy points at the tight end position, finishing as the tight end 7, as I said earlier.
Especially as we know how just frustrating the tight end position can be on a week-to-week basis.
Mm-hmm.
Hot take: I feel like tight end position is going to get a little deeper this year.
Okay.
I feel like it might level off a little bit. Pete Kels, I think, is still going to be the top option, but I think you're going to have a little bit more from the 4 to 7, 8 range that are going to be competing for that top spot weekly.
I think the style of the tight end position in the NFL is playing. Like I was thinking about this earlier today. If you're looking at the guys, I guess from a fantasy perspective, this benefits us. They're just bigger receivers. They're not really I mean, they can block, but blocking's not a priority from the tight end anymore.
No, you have to be able to catch the ball as a tight end now.
I mean, look at the guys who showed out last year. Like George Kittle broke out. He's an elite receiver. So far this year, Waller, Mark Andrews, Hockenson, the rookie. He's a tight end, and he ran like 19 point something miles an hour on the next gen stats.
Yeah. I mean, look at Evan Ingram and what his draft day profile was kind of fitted as. It was a bigger wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They called him a tight end, but everybody was saying he's just a bigger wide receiver.
Yeah. I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. Like Darren Waller is 6'6", 238, and fast.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's just a big body who can move quickly. He's got good hands. He can block.
You're telling me the age of Jason Witten is over?
The age of Jason.
Hey, he looked good too. Don't sleep on Jason Witten. Back in the booth, scores a touchdown.
Man. Yeah. If Jason Witten can play tight end, I can play tight end.
He was a little too early. Too early. Jason Witten is a rookie now. Imagine. Just the way the game is being played is just different as far as the tight end position.
Yep. All right, and defenses, will make this really quick. The New England Patriots.
The Patriots defense.
Their defense let up 3 points to a Hall of Fame quarterback, in my opinion.
Bill Belichick is good at coaching football.
Defense is nuts. And yeah, it goes back again. Bill Belichick's good at coaching football. So if they're available and you think your defense is spotty, New England Patriots is a very solid defense to play.
Actually, they play Miami this week,
and they play Miami.
We'll see what happens there. Highly likely end up being the number 1 defense on the week.
Possibility. All right, let's get into questions before we end the show here. We have 2 questions. We'll start with the first one from Eat Richard. It says, "Hey FFMadmen, what are you thinking for snaps this Sunday for David Montgomery? He was split 3 ways against the Packers, but he seemed to be the best option." Mark, as a Bears fan and as your hot take, as if you guys watched last week's show, David Montgomery finishes as a top 12 running back in PPR leagues.
Book it.
Mark's sticking to his guns, and I respect that. But I'll read you his stat line. He was on 38% of the snaps. He had 6 carries for 18 yards, and he was targeted once for 27 yards, and a reception for 27 yards.
And if that was a better throw, he probably would have gone to the house with it.
It would have, yeah, it was thrown a little bit behind him. He could have scored a touchdown with it. But what do you guys think? Is it a running back by committee in Chicago?
Well, the question says it was split 3 ways, but there's really only 2 running backs. And that's because Tariq Cohen is a slot receiver. So, Mike Davis and Dave Montgomery. I think Matt Nagy's a smart guy. He's going to watch the tape. If you watch the game, the talent is clearly evident. Like, the evidence is there that David Montgomery is a better football player than Mike Davis.
But the snap percentages don't. Mike Davis caught 6 receptions on 7 targets, and he was on the field for 56% of the snaps. Tariq Cohen, 70% of the snaps, had 10 targets.
Yeah, but Tariq Cohen lined up in the slot like 30
Okay,
times.
that's fine. I'm just saying the snap percentages don't suit David Montgomery here. But what you're saying is Matt Nagy's going to see film and going to realize that David Montgomery needs to be given the ball more. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
You give the ball to your more talented players.
I agree. He looked like the best running back out there. He had 3 yards a carry, which isn't phenomenal. I mean, Mike Davis had 3.8 yards. Cohen wasn't even handed the ball. He only caught it, which isn't surprising. We're not surprised by that. We were more surprised by Mike Davis and his snap percentage is what concerns me.
Tariq Cohen plays his own position. It's not running back. It's not wide receiver, whatever you want to call it. I'm there to be a playmaker.
If Tariq Cohen was like 5'10", 200 pounds, he would be Alvin Kamara in that offense.
Maybe.
So, I mean, you're saying Montgomery's on for what are you going to say his snap percentage is compared to Mike Davis?
Compared to Mike Davis, I almost want to say you see a flip. So Mike Davis was at about 50?
56.
I think you see Montgomery this week then over 50% target or snap share, and Mike Davis at
takes
30
a hit.
Or lower.
Okay, Chris, do you agree? Do you have any other?
Yeah, I mean, he's the better player. I think everybody saw that. I'd hope Nagy's able to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think his snap share goes up. I think it goes up from what it was. I don't know if I don't think he dominates the snap share just yet, though.
He'll get there. The Denver front 7 though this week.
That Josh Jacobs just ran over.
Yeah, exactly.
Not too worried about the Denver front 7. The only thing I am worried about is apparently Mike Clay today kind of put out a stat about Denver at home early on in the season, and their record is astronomically high in terms of win percentage. So it's something to look at, but I'm holding my breath. I'm still waiting out on Montgomery.
Yeah, I don't think.
If I have another option, I'm sitting him this week. If I don't, obviously you got to play him.
I don't think this is the week he breaks out. Not in Denver. Not especially Big Fangio. He's gonna know exactly.
He's got some tough matchups.
Fangio's gonna know what to do against Trubisky, which is really gonna limit that offense.
Yeah, that could be another good game.
I see it. Yeah, I think defense is going to play a huge impact.
Yeah. All right. Next question we have, and the last question before we end the show here. How do you think Breida will pan out in week 2? So Coleman is out with an ankle injury, right? It's ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was ruled out already. So Matt Breida seems like the guy that's going to get the ball. Let me pull up. If I can spell Breida.
So I think it's a 60-40 split, just like it was before Coleman went down. So I think you almost just like shift the depth chart up, if that makes sense. So Tevin Coleman was the number 1 guy. He was getting like that 60% of the carries. Matt Breida was getting 40%. And then at close to that. And then Mostert would be sprinkled in.
Yeah, so currently the depth chart.
You bump Breida up, he gets about 60% of the carries. You get Mostert now taking the next step up, maybe 30 to 40% of the carries. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Wilson gets brought back.
Well, he's on the practice squad, so I'm sure they picked him up. But fantasy-wise, I don't think Jeff Wilson's...
I believe Jeff Wilson did get promoted from the
practice squad
to the starting roster.
Okay.
So I could see him getting
I don't think
a
he's
couple
get
touches.
Crazy.
Nothing like don't go out and pick up Jeff Wilson. I don't think. Yeah.
I don't think he's worth anything right now. But
Mostert, I think
Raheem Mostert is the guy you look to pick up.
In case something happens to Breida, he was a bit injury prone last year, but we like to call him the Wolverine because he suffers an injury on one play, it looks bad, and 3 plays later he's back in the game.
According to Sleeper, he's questionable, which is odd. I didn't know he was even hurt.
Breida's in concussion protocol.
Okay. So that puts Raheem Mostert a little bit higher now. Their current depth chart reads Breida, Mostert, Wilson, Juszczyk, which is their fullback, McKinnon, who's on IR, and Tevin Coleman, who we already know is out. But yeah, Matt Breida had 44% of the snaps. Let me pull up. Raheem Mostert also had 29% of the snaps, but he had 4.4 yards a carry. 9 carries for 40 yards for Raheem Mostert, or as we like to call him, Colonel Mustard. So we're saying that Breida gets 60%, Mostert gets 40%? 60-40 split?
I think you can see that, yeah. And the thing is, it's a volatile guesstimate too.
They're going to play the high hand.
If Mostert comes out and he starts just tearing up chunks, I can see Mostert getting 60% and Breida getting 40%.
They're playing Cincinnati this week, so.
And Chris Carson ran all over Cincinnati.
Yep, and caught the ball. And both of those guys can catch the ball.
Yeah, I don't think these guys are as talented as Chris Carson.
No.
But I could see.
Wasn't Chris Carson like a 7th round pick? Something nuts like that.
I don't remember.
He was super late. I want to say he was a 7th round pick. Anyways, yeah. 60-40 split between Breida and Mostert is what we're saying. All right, guys. Anything else you guys want to add on before we end the show?
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson's a beast.
If you have Hawkinson, you have to change your team name to Hawkinson Loogies.
Yeah, that's a great team name.
One thing I do wanted to touch on, a little daily dose of Dynasty. We got to mention that huge trade that went down right before Week 1 started.
All right.
Now I'm talking about the Dynasty trade between Brian and Jared. Brian acquired Dalvin Cook, and he gave up George Kittle, Dante Pettis, and a 2020 first-round pick. You guys got any thoughts on this? One side favored over the other?
I think after Week 1, it's pretty favorable towards Brian, especially since, in my opinion, he got an RB1. He got an RB1 for Kittle in a first round. I'm not too worried about that. If Brian thinks his team is going to perform, which I think he did before the most recent Antonio Brown news came out, his first round pick is going to be like 8 to 10, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range, something like that. Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with it.
I was okay with it as well.
And then I think he absolutely stole, like you kind of have to follow it up with the next trade that Brian made, which was James Washington for Alexander Madison, and a 2nd round pick, which I thought was like a steal in of itself.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
I would have just done a 2nd round pick, but Madison and a 2nd round was like, I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, I think Brian definitely got the better end of it. He got an RB1. He got his backup, who they love in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I
kind of lean towards Jared, actually.
I mean, he got Kittle out of it and a first round pick.
Kittle and the first round pick.
That's the cost of an RB1. I mean,
I think you have to. The issue with me is that the later picks, and we've only been doing Dynasty for so long, so we don't 100% know how all rookie drafts are going to go. But the later picks you have to hit on, whereas your first 3 picks, in the rookie draft are usually pretty like, you know they're going to hit. Josh Jacobs, you knew was going to hit. Montgomery's jury's still out, but the hype's there. You're pretty sure he's going to hit. N'Keal Harry got put in a really good situation that turned south for him really quick, so that's kind of meh. And then after that, it's like everybody else was kind of on the same level. Like, are they going to hit? Yeah, but Hawkinson went at pick 7. You get what I'm saying? Like, you have to hit on them. And so that's why I'm not too. If you project your team to be on the top end of it, which I think Brian did, rightfully so, I don't think it's a bad thing to give up a first-round pick.
Brian's going for it, and
exactly.
That's fine. I totally agree with it. All right.
I got news for Brian. He picked a bad year.
Well, I don't know. The next daily dose of Dynasty news: in a battle of busts, Mark triumphs over Brennan in a nasty Week 1 matchup.
Better believe it.
The two lowest scoring teams faced off in Week 1.
And Mark I think pulled I did better than that. Did I do better? I wasn't lowest.
No,
DeAndre Hopkins saved my week.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins is good at football, in case you didn't know.
Yep, he's also good at football. So this next one had me heated and on the edge of my seat for so long on Sunday was how Tommy's team, and if you guys want to take a look at the script, I think Tommy deserves to be jumped from number 11 in the league to number 10. He's jumped the garbage can. We'll put him at 10 officially. He's jumped the garbage can.
Yeah, Alec, I want to see. Can you pull up just the Week 1 matchups on the stream there? Just give people.
I can actually
some visuals there. No, yeah, you got to mention Tommy's team. We absolutely bashed it in our preseason rankings or evaluations of everyone's team. Rightfully so. But Tommy's team balled out. They absolutely blew through its ceiling, I think. And the icing on the cake, or for the rest of us, not so much Tommy, the silver lining is he still lost. But he had you sweating, Alex.
Yeah. Well, when guys like Deshaun Jackson wants to absolutely go off for no frickin' reason, yeah, had me shaking in my boots. T.Y. Hilton almost scored 30.
Imagine if Brandon Cooks had a good game.
Or the guy had he had a negative player, and I only won by how much? 9. I scored 173 points. I had a great week, but I was on the edge of my seat watching the New Orleans game. Luckily, Michael Thomas outscored Drew Brees thanks to that interception, and I win Week 1. When he threw that interception, I knew I had Week 1 in the bag. As soon as he threw it, it was in the first quarter. I knew I had him.
It was such an enjoyable experience too for those of us we were all in here, we're all watching the games, hanging out, and anytime Tommy's team did anything, we just rallied behind it. Like, we know we just absolutely bashed his team and expected so little from it, and for it to have a chance to just it was just like the underdog. He was Rudy. Tommy's team was Rudy this week, and we all wanted Rudy to succeed. Unfortunately, he did not.
Yeah, Delaney Walker was also a guy that went off. He had 5 catches for 55 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. That's the first time he's had 2 touchdowns in a game since 2015. Like, what? And they were both in garbage time. Like, he outscored Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce didn't even catch half his targets.
Okay, that's because Pat Mahomes tried to get stylish with a no-look pass to a wide-open guy.
Well, Patty Mahomes is a bit cocky, and he deserves it. And he's allowed to do it. All right, yeah. So Tommy's team balled out, but hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, I believe I played Jared this week, so hopefully that's not the case this week. Yeah, next bit of news is no one's going to talk about Brady's team. So I don't even think we need to talk about this one.
We already talked about Brady's team. We don't need to talk about it.
We'll just mention that Brady's team scored the most points this week.
The Lizard King helped him.
The Lizard King definitely came through for Brady. Let's look at his Week 1.
Striker agrees.
Yeah. You guys hear Murphy in the background. It's not. Let me pull up the Week 1 numbers for Brady's team. For some reason, it's being dumb. But anyways,
he scored 179
points. He overachieves their projection by 46%. His projection was 122. Yeah.
Feels
Yikes.
good.
Yeah, and it was a good time for Brady to do it because he played Chris.
Happens.
Yeah. All right, guys. That is it for the Fantasy Football Madmen. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at MadmenFF. I know I said it backwards at the beginning of the show, but it's at MadmenFF. You can find us on YouTube, YouTube/FFMadmen. Follow us on Twitch. We do this we're doing this 2 days a week now. We have a show tomorrow as well. So definitely tune in for that. Again, feel free to donate. Don't have to, but feel free to. They're always welcome. And ask questions in the chat. You can always ask us questions on Twitter. We'll get to those in the chat as well. So make sure to tune in tomorrow, and we'll see you guys later. Have a good one, guys.
Peace.